In response to North Korea's latest missile launch, South Korea and the United States military fired a volley of missiles into the sea in the early hours of Wednesday. Seoul says the two militaries launched a total of 4 Army tactical missile systems towards the East Sea. Separately, one among the 4 failed shortly after the launch and crashed, though no casualties have been reported. The launch comes a day after Pyongyang sent a missile flying over Japan for the first time since 2017. The missile test has been seen as a deliberate escalation to get the attention of Tokyo and Washington. In response, the US, Japan and South Korea have been conducting military drills as a show of force against the North. Speaking to a US broadcaster, US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the launch was designed to show that the US and their allies have the military capabilities at the ready to respond to provocations by the North. North Korea's intermediate-range ballistic missile launch was its most provocative weapons demonstrated this year. US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida condemned North Korea's test in the strongest terms. The European Union called it a reckless and deliberately provocative action, while UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the launch and called it a violation of Security Council resolutions. For more on this, we're now joined by our correspondent Chris Gilbert from Tokyo. Chris, what's the latest that you can share with us on this big story? These missile launches coming exactly 24 hours after what has been described as a grave provocation by North Korea. Some say the North was, in a sense, seeking attention of Washington and Tokyo, and it looks like it's got it.
Well, that's right. Yesterday morning, we woke up to find out that North Korea had sent a missile flying overhead here in Japan. This morning, we woke up and found that South Korea and the United States had responded to military drills now, beginning with bombing drills with jet fighters. The second one, as you mentioned, 4 rockets fired off the Korean coast. A bit of tit-for-tat going on. South Korea and the United States trying to show that any military aggression by North Korea will be met with a show of force. But North Korea says that it launched the missile in the first place in response to ongoing naval drills by Japan, South Korea and the United States that had happened just last week. Meanwhile, Fumio Kishida, the Japanese Prime Minister, and US President Joe Biden have spoken. They have condemned the launch. They are agreeing to bolster Japan's defenses in the area. Japan's defense minister as well has also said that he's not ruling out any options for further securing Japan as well. That could also speculating that could also include the ability to attack the areas where these missiles are launched from themselves. Of course, Japan can't do that yet because under its constitution it is a pacifist country. So any intention to do that by the Japan government would mean a revisitation of the Japan constitution for the first time in history. A very hard sell for the public here, who are quite anti-war and very pacifist, but with these ongoing tests from North Korea, it's becoming an easier sell for the government every day.
It's interesting, Chris, you talk about how the Japanese government has largely been pacifist in its approach, but that might change now given the provocations from North Korea. Now, many have been concerned about whether, yesterday's developments and now the tit-for-tat actions that we've seen earlier today could in fact lead to ratcheting up of tensions in the region. Is that a fear that is being expressed by many experts and Korea watchers?
Well, with neighbors like China, Russia and North Korea, tensions in Japan are always vibrating at a low hum. A rocket going ahead is definitely a spike in those tensions, and as we have seen, a strong response. Media here has been trying to wrap their heads around what is possibly behind the motivation for Pyongyang to continue these missile tests, and there is speculation that they are ramping up for a nuclear test before the end of the year. So concerns are growing around that, but the talks about remilitarizing Japan have been going on for a long time, for at least 10 years or so, and also talks of increasing Japan's defense budget to become 2% of GDP. That has been going on for a long time as well. So it may be far off before either of those things happen, but certainly there is an escalating sense of tension in the region.
Certainly an escalating sense of tension in the region and growing talk about remilitarization of Japan. We leave it at that, Chris. Thanks so much for getting us all those details from Tokyo on that big story of the day.